you tell us what the basic premise of this story is?
Well, the basic premise of the story revolves around a group of neuroscientists, played by myself and Johnny Depp, who are also husband and wife, and their good friend Paul Bettany, who are pretty much at the vanguard of trying to actualize this notion of the singularity, which is, or the transcendence as it is called in the film, which is the moment that computers become sentient beings or surpass the intelligence and capacity of humans. So essentially there's no difference between humans and computers. They're sort of moral crusaders in the sense that they believe that this is the greatest hope for our future as a race, of mankind's future, in that it will solve climate problems and it will solve disease and poverty, hunger, the whole 9 yards. And there's also a faction of people who could be termed, terrorists or whatever you want to call them, who are vehemently opposed to this notion and believe that it will essentially take away what makes us humans. And they try to stop it, and in the outcome attempt to make an assassination on Johnny Depp's character's life, at which point I, as his wife, am faced with the dilemma of realizing that I'll either lose him, or I could fast track the research and upload his consciousness to a computer and let him live on forever inside the computer, which is what she does. And then it unravels from there.
That's great. So how is Evelyn and Will's relationship before he's uploaded into the computer compared to what it is after? How does it change?
Well, it's set up very quickly, their relationship, but you get the sense that the casters are this sort of idealized couple. Like they share everything. They share their life and their love and their work, and they're very much they have a parity and a very, very human and easy and admirable and wonderful relationship. And this alters drastically when he becomes omniscient, as it were. And I suppose it's the dilemma of the film, is that it's very difficult to quantify or prove consciousness. So if you upload someone's personality to a machine, how do you then get the machine to prove that it is that person? Now, a neuroscientist, I know this because we researched it and we spoke to them, would say that there's nothing that we would call human behavior, be it emotions, love, sadness, fear, anger, what more romantic or spiritual people would like to call the soul. There is none of that cannot be reduced to neurological function or a synapse or and the moment that you can map it is the moment that you can reproduce it, save it, upload it, whatever you want to do with it. But that's from their perspective, of course, scientifically, but philosophically, it's still something that's questionable. Because how do you know? And I suppose that Evelyn goes through that dilemma during the course of the movie. She's like, well, I don't. How does one know that this really is my husband? Mm-hmm. Or I certainly can't touch him. I certainly can't have the relationship that I used to have with him. So of course it alters drastically, and she doubts it.
Obviously, this is a lot of a heady subject, and you speak so well on it. So, speaking of the research, did you have to do a lot of research for this? Did you?
I didn't. I suppose I don't have to. Nobody's ever holding me at gunpoint to do research, but I have to say I was completely naive and rather arrogant when I read the script, because I just assumed that this was Hollywood storytelling, and I was like, okay, it's good Hollywood storytelling, it's fun Hollywood storytelling, I want to see it, and it's raises some interesting philosophical points, and then a rudimentary Google search, and suddenly mind expands about exponentially, vastly. My eyes are opened as I realise out there's, futurists, transhumanists, people that believe that the singularity is coming in 2045. Some people believe it's coming in 2020 something. It's like, it's bananas what's out there, and it's all very, very real and very, very near. And so I suppose the more that I scratch the surface a little bit, I just wanted to get in there because it's fascinating and terrifying and potentially exciting and potentially horrifying.
Yeah.
So I couldn't stop really after a while.
Yeah, that's what I figured. You've got this great cast of actors here all together, and you've got a first-time director, Wally Pfister, who is a legend in his own world before this. How was that to work with all these people?
Well, Wally, I met Wally a while back when he was a DP, and was very fond of him then, and I just sort of instinctively knew that he would have a great vision and be unique and be something special as a director as well as a DP. And he proved it. He proved to me. I mean, he has all the, and it was glorious to be in that company of someone who has all the everything that comes with having no disappointments as a director that first-time directors have, and the joy and the sort of vigor and the determination to be a perfectionist on every level, and because everything is in this basket, as it were, and also, but none of the greenness, none of the lack of experience, because he's more experienced than any first-time director is ever going to be ever in the history of first-time directors. Also, I do think a DP arguably watches how actors work closer than anyone else on the set. I mean, bar the director, but their job is to light us, so they're constantly watching our behaviour and our faces and how we operate and how we do things. So he knew how to speak to actors, and he knew how to transition into that relationship, and he was brilliant at it.
And working with Johnny and Paul and
Johnny Depp is just annoyingly one of the most charming and charismatic and generous actors. He's just for such a huge movie star, he's curiously devoid of ego in the way that a lot of movie stars have. He's genuinely interested in people and having conversations that aren't about acting. He'll talk about music and books and everything else, which I love because I think a lot of actors have other interests. It's part of our job is to be broadly interested in life, so it tends to generate interesting discussion. And he's definitely one of those, and he's that, and he's also a pro. He's there, and he was there for all of our footage. I didn't shoot anything with a green screen. I didn't shoot anything with the script supervisor saying his lines. He was in a room next door being beamed in via a live feed, and we had earpieces in so we could talk to each other all day. So he had my back, as it were, which I thought was very generous of him and great.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Well, that was great.